the more intensity inside you, the more seasoned your questions are going to be, the more it's going to impact you, and depending on whose advice you're seeking or who's going to nourish you, that advice or that particular source of nourishment will also be very impactful. If that makes any sense. And I think the point of people like Malcolm, like Martin, like Jesus, like Muhammad, really, they're there just to inspire us and pull us to a certain place in life, emotional life, where you begin to ask existential, intellectual, spiritual questions in a profoundly intense way. And once you get there, there is no one who can answer you except God, I suppose, if there is such a thing. Or if you don't believe in God, something needs to come from within. It's like Matthew. I just know I need to quit. No one needs to tell me. I don't need the Jesus Christ. I don't need God to judge me. I judge myself and I find myself inadequate. I need to quit. And it's the best place to be. Because when you get there, no one can take that awareness from you. Jesus can't come down and say, oh, Matthew, I give you permission to quit. You say, listen, I know you're Jesus Christ. I love you. I know, you're my Savior. But the truth is, I have come to realize this is bad for me, period. I don't care what you say. Or when you know that a man or a woman is bad for you, and regardless of how many times your mom tells you stay in the marriage, you say, no, I'm out. You have no idea what's happening behind closed doors, and you just walk out. With no regret, no shame, no remorse. And I guess there's a reason why nothing ever changes for us and society. We ask questions, but there are no real emotions behind them. Like, you raise your hand and say, how can we get rid of poverty? How do we get rid of homelessness? People kind of say, yeah, let's get rid of homelessness. Let's create a building 10 stories high, and each level has 50 rooms. Well, if you've been homeless for 20 years, you have a good amount of anger inside you. How do you deal with that? You might have a good amount of substance abuse inside you, addiction inside you. What do you do with that? At least now you're in the street. You only have access to 20 people. Put them in a building, well, you have a gang now. Every level wants to kill the next level. Maybe it's not a good idea to house all these homeless people together. You kind of look at something. You have all these ridiculous infantile feelings that has no reflection behind it. And so you ask, and then he goes, no. Are we, is it? Sarah, anything? If there is nothing, there is nothing. That's okay. Go ahead, ask me. There has to be something. I'm just kidding. Paula?
Do you believe that someone with a high sense of pride or possibly overcoming something major in their lives can also be aware of other things they need to overcome, or does that sense of pride kind of lead them astray from seeing let's say someone had a rough upbringing and they pulled themselves out of poverty within,
Oprah.
Huh?
Like Oprah Winfrey?
I guess so.
Okay.
And so you can say that in her life, or maybe in her personal life, or within her family, there are people that say or feel like she may need to work on different things, but because she has done this huge thing for herself, she's blinded to maybe other things that she also needs to work on. Do you think that could take, or can that be a reason as to why some people do have blind spots?
I think we all have blind spots, regardless of who and what we are. Even Jesus Christ had blind spots, in the sense that He doesn't need his parents. They're not nourishing him. He walks away. Maybe he sees God. Maybe he becomes God himself. He comes back with the arrogance of thinking that he'll be able to transform people, only to come to realize that no one is listening to him. And if they are, no one really understands him. And if they are understanding him, they're understanding him in all the wrong ways. So eventually, he just kind of gets killed. Okay? Now imagine for a moment that you don't have any money. And there's a good amount of humility. You know you're poor. And so someone very close to you passes away and they leave you $1 million. Well, you've never had that much money. Okay? That much money becomes a source of arrogance and pride and hubris for you. What needs to, remember, you can't have awareness and pride at the same time. Because the only thing awareness will bring about is how poor you are in the grand scheme of things, you know. There is also this other thing that you need to kind of understand. There is this guy in the Sufi tradition where he says, my humility is not there for you. Okay? My humility is there for its own reasons. It's kind of like when Jesus Christ is talking to you, you find him to be profoundly arrogant. You ask him any questions, he says, oh, I have the answer for that. Okay? And the audience sits back and says, how could a human being be filled with so much pride, hubris, arrogance? What you don't understand is when he is done with his audience, he walks back to the church, he sits and weeps and says, Father, forgive me, for I know not what I say. How could you be so arrogant in public and so humble in solitude? Okay. So, in many cases, I think when you have someone on the stage performing piano in front of 1,000 people, that's a good amount of pride being expressed on the stage, and rightly so, they have been practicing. But that person who's been on the stage goes into his cave and plays piano, practices piano, wants to become better in solitude for 5-10 hours a day. Okay? So remember, pride and humility go hand in hand for people who know what they're doing. Okay? Now, you know that you're poor. And you know that in poverty you need to beg. I mean, right now, you have a man who works, sometimes you work, you have, your financial situation is relatively okay. Your kids are well off. Now, God forbid something happens to your relationship, you walk away from your husband, your mom goes back to Chile, and you're stranded. You don't have education, you don't have a good savings, and it's just you and the kids. What are you going to do? The reality of life will humble you. You will begin to ask people for money, something you have never done in your life and something you never imagined yourself doing in your life. Okay? Life forces humility upon you. Now, let's say with one of the dollars that you borrow from someone, you go to 7-Eleven and you buy a lottery ticket. And that gets you about 295 million bucks. Okay, being paid to you over the course of the next 25 years. You have never had $500,000 a year in your pocket before. That's going to create a good amount of unawareness about you and therefore arrogance about you. Now money has given you a different value, different worth, and you're going to push that in other people's faces. Someone in need is going to come to you and say, can I borrow 10 bucks? You say, well, I can't give you 10, but I'll give you 5. Say, you have all this money, just give me 10. You say, no, you don't deserve it. Okay? And money is going to change the way you're going to see yourself. So just because you had poverty, because you were aware that you had no money, it doesn't mean that humility is going to kind of come with you when you are rich. Unless you buy your mansion, you buy a few Teslas, you buy 2 fridges, you live in Beverly Hills, and one morning you wake up and you say, You know, Paula, you were living in a tent just a few years ago. Now you live in a mansion. Nothing about you has really changed. The tent has simply become a big brick environment. No fridge, now you have a fridge, but you're still the same piece of crap. And all of a sudden, the value that money gave you for 2 years, it all vanishes. You have this humility. Now, whether or not that humility stays with you, that depends on how traumatic the experience has been, this awakening experience, whether you have a support system, your kids telling you, Mom, we've been telling you for the past 5 years that money doesn't make you you. You just didn't listen. So yes, just because you have awareness and humility in one area of life, it doesn't mean that that's going to carry in other areas. Awareness is really difficult to kind of have because it is a place of discomfort. You need to be pushed to go outside of your environment, to look in and see the things you have never seen before. You know, it does require a good amount of honesty. And I think people in bad relationships, even, it doesn't need to be a romantic relationship. You know, even in this class, for example, once in a while, you kind of fall into boredom because it's a very comfortable and lazy place to be. It doesn't require any responsibility or reflection. Sometimes, and they come to us without our awareness. Something about it says, man, when is this class over? You become aware. You get tired of being bored. You get tired of hearing my voice. You get tired of looking at me. You get tired of listening to things that don't make sense to you, or they may make sense, but they're irrelevant for you. And the moment you become kind of aware, you enter a world of frustration because there isn't much you can do. What are you going to do? Pack up your stuff and leave? Other people are going to judge you. Your value is going to go down. Maybe you don't care about the judgment of other people. You judge yourself. You signed up for a class. You want to leave, but you don't want to. I don't really know if I answered your question or if I understood your question well. I think even if you were to look at yourself and your interaction, you have 2 kids. You have one who's 8, you have one who's 4, you have a husband who's 38, and you have a mom who is 62, okay? If you look at the interactions you have with all those 5 people in your life, or 4, your arrogance and your humility towards each of them differ. You expect more from your son, the older one, okay? So you're much more harsh to him. You're much more arrogant, I suppose, if you want to call it that. But you're softer to the younger one. To your husband, you make him feel invisible. You are extremely harsh and arrogant. You just say, I know this is what we need to do. But that's not the way you are with your mom. You know? And whether you're aware or whether you're just a great politician, that you know exactly how to be with each person. I think one of the best people that you could ever read and able to kind of survive life is Niccolo Machiavelli, the prince. In every relationship, in every single relationship, know that you need to be feared. Human beings are primitive. We are callous, we are casual, we are infantile. If you don't fear your boss, you will bring him to your own level. Soon you will lose respect for him. Soon you will not care for what he says to you. Soon he'll come to realize as a boss he is incompetent. He'll go to another manager and ask him to fire you. If you have debates with your husband, and oftentimes you realize that he's not listening to you, it's because he doesn't fear you. He doesn't respect you. Now, you just want to make sure that if you fear someone, that person needs to make sure that fear does not turn to hate. Because if you hate someone, you will try to do things to damage him, damage his reputation, find a way to have him lose his job. But when you love someone too much, and the love has no fear in it, eventually when love turns mediocre, the person that you loved, they become invisible to you. You should see this movie called The Young Pope with Jude Law. I don't know if any of you are familiar. Season 1. Season 2 is not that good. I haven't really watched it. I've just heard that it's not good. But he comes to, when they ask this young Pope that we need to take your picture and put your picture on plates and cups and this and that, he says, no. There's a reason why no one cares about Catholicism anymore. There's a reason why no one cares about the church anymore. There's a reason why no one cares about the Pope anymore. We're out there too much. It's like when you expose young men to pornography so much, they no longer have the ability to respect women. It's just too much. If you want people to respect women, remove pornography, remove dating, remove sex, remove casual conversation, remove partying. Next time you want to look at a woman, it's about marriage. Once you marry, then you can have sex. Sex is also now in a container where you need to work, pay for mortgage or rent, buy food, buy a car, take your women out here and there, and all of a sudden you have sex, yes, but it's within a very protected environment. And just in case you're contemplating divorce, you have a culture that will spank the hell out of you, just in case you have those thoughts. I know I digressed, but I live in the Middle East. There's lots of traffic. No path is ever straight. Kendra?
Why is it that sometimes we try to be realistic about something and we see that there's a lot of pain and struggle involved in it?
Before the 19th or early 20th century, I know your question is, I just wanted to say this before I forget. I'm at an age where if I don't rush to express what I'm thinking, I'll just forget. For thousands of years, painting has been very abstract. The artist has a tendency of injecting their own images, their own passions onto the canvas. I walk in the hood and I see dirt and garbage everywhere. There's going to be a good amount of black clouds, but I'll just create an opening and the sun, you can see parts of it, and all of a sudden your painting is transformed. That there is hope. That despite all the mess down here, there is a part in the sky that you can see light. That all changed with the invention of cameras, because all of a sudden the artist was no longer in the picture. Their fantasies, their hopes and dreams. The camera now takes a picture and it's going to show you things as they are. And depending on what it is that you are showing, what you've taken a picture of. There is this journalist who was in Ukraine, has taken all these pictures of dead bodies, and she's been given some awards, but they're horrifying pictures. If you are able to kind of YouTube some of the pictures taken, say, during Depression or during World War II, of the corpses, of the graveyards, it's troubling. It really, really is. Because for the first time, you're in the presence of something that's just all too real. I know I've told you the story, but let me just repeat. There's a restaurant in Roseville, it's called Fats. And we go there once in a while. It's quite pricey. Their chow mein is like $30. You know, I mean, it's the embodiment of injustice. You know, noodles you buy for 10 cents and you charge, you know, $30. I go to the bathroom. The ceiling is black, the walls are red, the counter is dark brown, and the lights are yellow dim yellow. And you look at your face, and man, it's beautiful. You don't see wrinkles. You don't see that you're going bald or you are bald. You don't see how exhausted you look, because the environment just masks all those deficiencies. And I kind of just look at myself in the mirror and say, yeah, man, you look great. When you were 19, you didn't look this good. And you'd actually want to go to the server and say, can you bring my food to the bathroom? You know, because I love to just eat and look at my own face. I can just worship myself. And then at a certain point, you know, you just walk home, drive home, you go to floss and brush your teeth, and you turn on the bathroom light, and it's light, you know. You say, damn, you look awful. That'll happen to you in like 5 minutes' time. You look great, now look at you. You have wrinkles and you look exhausted. You just look crappy, man. And you kind of just close your eyes as you're flossing and brushing, and you don't even, you know, you just turn off the lights and just run. And that's the problem with realism. If you pay attention to life, to the way you are in relation to life, to how much you really don't know, how ridiculous your fantasies about yourself and your friends and meaning and identity are, it's a nightmare. It really, really is. I mean, why the hell would you want to live in Oakland and send your kids to school in Oakland? Why? It's stupid. Why the hell would you want to go to Laney College? Look at the buildings. Look at the classroom. It doesn't inspire positive thoughts. I mean, even just close your eyes and just be aware of what human beings do when they have sex. It's disgusting. The very person that you worship, you've fallen in love, they actually take a dump every night. That's disgusting. The sort of conversations we have with people, and how arrogant all of us are in trying to pretend that we know what is good, what is right, what is just. Look at all these professors coming to the classroom and yapping on like me. We have been around for thousands, if not millions of years. How much do we know about anything? Nothing. I'm like a grain of sand in the middle of the desert. I mean, you talk about pride. You know, I live at Laney right now. Laney lives in Oakland. Oakland lives in Northern California. Northern California lives in California. California lives in America. America lives on this globe, Earth. The Earth lives in its own little universe. The universe lives in a galaxy. How many galaxies do we have out there? My life is, what, 60, 70 pathetic years? And yet when I walk, I don't walk gently. I don't walk softly on the ground. I thump my feet. I want everyone to hear me as I walk. It's pathetic. The hell are you so proud of? What are your accomplishments? What, you earned a couple of ridiculous degrees from ridiculous universities? That bunch of losers give you a job? And then you have a bunch of incompetent people you call students coming to class and listening to you? And how much of what you say can they really grasp? And you don't need to be me, man. Imagine Polo coming up here talking about what it means to be a mother of two in America. But how can anyone in this room grasp that? You're 19, you got no kids, you got no responsibility, and somehow Polo is ridiculous enough to assume that what she's saying is actually going to make sense, real sense, to a mind of a 19-year-old. Realism is honesty. Honesty is awareness, and that's frightening. Do you really think that couples can actually sit and have an honest conversation with one another? No, you never want to do that. And don't listen to anyone who encourages you that. I mean, before you can actually have an honest conversation with another, you need to have an honest conversation with yourself. And you won't like where your honesty will take you. You know? What is that saying in the Old Testament? Speak the truth and the truth shall set you free? No. That is such a lie. It may not be a lie, but at least it has a lot of footnotes that it doesn't cover. Speak the truth. Imagine that you've gone to, say, I don't know, a park that is 10 times the size of a football field. 10 times. And it's lush. Grass, shrubs, trees, and you're running. And all of a sudden your ring falls. How long do you think it's going to take you to find your ring? First, there's a good amount of luck involved. Second, you have to kind of roam around this environment 50 million times. You have to deal with frustration, hopelessness, and you have to summon the will to go back again and look for it. A tiny little thing. And how powerful are your eyes? How many people are there to help you? No one really cares about your ring. People have lives, man. They'll eventually go home. It's you and you alone. And how patient are you? And how much do you actually care about the ring? What does the ring symbolize? If you hate your husband, well, shit, you've been wanting to get rid of the rings for a long, long time. So you're not going to seek anything you don't care for. Okay? So that's what the truth is. Living somewhere deep below, you have to have an intense amount of desire and emotions where you want to actually go figure out what the truth is. And you have no idea, Kendra, you have no idea how the truth is going to impact you. If you actually have the capacity. And of the truth given to you, you have no idea how much of that truth you can actually embrace. You know, you may love Chinese food, and you may order $1,000 worth of Chinese food. But the truth is, you may only be able to have only a couple spoonfuls. Now, let's say you have kind of embraced your own capacity in relation to the degree of truth that you can take. Now comes the hard part. How do you express it? Do you do poetry? Do you do painting? Do you do music? Do you use language? Fine, let's just say you want to actually just speak of it. Okay? Well, you want to speak of it to who? To your husband. Well, he's another human being. He has his own luggage of bias and prejudice and crap that he has to deal with first of all. Once you say your truth, it's going to be filtered. Filtered according to his own nonsense, according to his own capacity. How much of that little truth that you have do you think he's going to get? If you have an ounce of truth, or if you have, say, a pound of truth, he may only be able to receive an ounce of it. But what's going to happen to the rest of the stuff you've given him? You want him to get the whole picture because you're greedy. You don't care for that tiny little ounce that he has because that ounce doesn't do much for you. And now you have to deal with your own agitation because he's a dumbass. Okay? And how long do you think you're going to keep pushing the conversation? in frustration, anger, rage. And I'll tell you this, the more honest you become, the lonelier you're going to be. When you love someone, and after many, many years you come to realize they don't love you back the same way, what do you think that honesty, that truth, that awareness is going to do for you? It liberates you in some ways, sure. And you say, okay, well, maybe I should be less attached. Maybe I should be less invested. Maybe instead of cooking 7 days a week, I should cook maybe 2 days a week. Maybe I should start hanging out with my own friends. Maybe I should care less. But these are places you need to kind of graduate to slowly. You won't be able to all of a sudden cut from 7 days cooking to 2 days, because that's what you've been doing for 10 years. You can't do cold turkey, because that's going to come as a shock to him. And how do you think he's going to respond? Again, there are reasons why humanity only generates one Malcolm X per century, one Jesus Christ for every 2,000 years. It's too much for humanity. You know, it's one thing for you to sit here on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 10:15 and hopefully hear some things that are honest. It's only for an hour. But when you leave this classroom and then there's another group of people waiting to kind of scream your ears into your ears about certain other parts of your life that are incompetent, deficient, and then from there you go to another location where you get another earful, how much of it can you take before you seriously contemplate suicide? We don't have the capacity for too much honesty and truth. That's not the way we are. Our entire life is governed by assumptions, dishonesties. We get married because of dishonesty, things that we don't really know. You yearn to have children because you don't know. And once you do know, you say, what the hell was wrong with me? You fall in love because you don't know. We do almost everything under the sun because we don't know. There's a reason why we have regrets. Once you know, you realize it was a mistake. And if you were to, look, that's one of the reasons why most people near old age, they have so much regret about almost everything that they've done. At old age, you realize things you didn't know about time, about youth, about friendship, about life. Without exception, every old people says, take advantage of your youth. Live it well. They don't tell you what it means to live well. They just say live it well. And in some ways, we are very lucky because we don't have people around us who are honest and truthful. They're kind of like the rest of us. We live in a cloud of lies. And in many ways, it's beneficial. It kind of allows life to continue. I have no shame in saying if I was a millionaire, I would never send my kids to school. I would never live in society. But I'm just a regular, common, ordinary man filled with a good amount of fear and love for the kids I don't really understand. And with my own hands, I clip their wings. I make them conform. I plunge them into this rat race. And I know exactly what the outcome is because I've been in the business of teaching, seeing young people. My kids are no exemption. They will fall victim to the poison of this culture. There is nothing I can do. And so when I go home and look at my kids, there's a good part of me that's depressed. There's a good part of me that's also hopeful. But the depressed part always wins, always. I see too much and I know too much. Have a nice weekend. Tell your family I said hello. Stay warm. Don't get sick. Thank you.